What's going on, guys? This is Mike with the 1% Mindset Podcast. I hope you guys are doing absolutely amazing. First and foremost, I always want to say as we start this podcast, for those of you who have been rocking with me, who've been listening in, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whether you're watching this on YouTube, first and foremost, thank you so much for tuning in, for rocking with your boy, for listening to the guests. I want to thank all the guests that's been on. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. I'm always in gratitude for what I've been able to accomplish, what I've been able to do over the years, and really just understanding the impact and the effect that it has had on people. And I've always said, whether you impact one person or whether you impact a million people, your impact will be remembered, right? So I don't necessarily look for the numbers, the amount. I don't care about the views or any of that. What I do care about is to make sure that my message resonates in truth and that I continue to walk in purpose. And that is 100% like my goal each and every time that I get on these podcasts, that I interview somebody, that I'm allowing someone else, whoever might see this, to ultimately change their perspective and thus change their life. And that's huge, huge, huge for me. So for those of you who have rocked with me, I just want to thank you. If you can do me a favor, my ask is if you can leave a review, that would mean a lot to me, whether it's a comment on YouTube, whether it's a review on the actual podcast itself, whatever it is, wherever it is, it would just mean the world to me. So thank you so much. The next thing I want to mention, I want to say that is extremely important. If you're brand new to this podcast, man, get ready. Get ready. My whole point in doing these podcasts is to reveal a truth where you may have blinders on, for you to create an awareness and a space that you may not see because of whether societal norms, whether it is just your blind spots, whatever that looks like for you. It's 100% important to see that and to see truth. So it's funny. It's interesting. This morning, like in this podcast, I really want to speak about purpose, but interestingly enough, this morning doing this podcast will actually be dropped tomorrow, but I'm doing it the day before, which is rare. I usually have some time before it, but doing this podcast today, I woke up pretty early, like 2:30. I've been up since like 2:30 this morning. It's 9 a.m. now, and I'll be up throughout the day because I have a book club later tonight. But as I was doing it, I decided to listen to a podcast. Right. I don't listen to too many podcasts, but I wanted to listen to, and I spoke about this on my morning motivation podcast. I listened to B. Simone on a podcast. A podcast is called Social Proof podcast. Phenomenal podcast. Super grateful for David Shands and what he brings and the guests that he brings on. But when I was listening to that podcast, he had B. Simone on his podcast. And I haven't seen B. Simone outside of the comedic space, outside of her doing like Wildin' Out on MTV, outside of, just in the comedic platform. And I was very impressed, listening to this podcast this morning, because, one thing about successful people, one thing about people who either become successful or are hitting that success mark, it's interesting because you have to master your mind. Right. It seems very cliche. Everyone says, it's a mindset. My whole slogan of the 1% mindset, the 1%, it's a mindset, that the original t-shirt that I created with it's a mindset, I 100% believe that when I said it. But when you say it so often, sometimes people don't get really how important it is to train your mind for the success that you want to have, to go through the bumps and the bruises for you to acquire what you deem necessary. And I don't know who you believe in or what higher power, if you believe in a God or not. But what I will say is there are times where you are tested strategically to see if you can pass the test, to see if you're even capable of the success that's owed to you, that's due to you. See if you're comfortable working through it, working for it. So when you get to that success, it's a space of humility and for you to be humble, so you can remember what it was like to get to that place, right? Because you truly don't understand or not equipped with the knowledge it takes if you don't work for it. So when I was listening to her story, and she spoke about a few things stood out to me, right? A few things stood out to me that was super, super powerful. She spoke about purpose a lot, and I do believe in purpose, and I'm gonna get to that. But she said to me, she manifested, like, one of her goals by 30 years old was to see $1 million, right, in her account. So she documented her process, and she said it took 30 years to make $1 million, right? And then it took 30 days to become a multimillionaire. Right, catch it. It took her 30 years to make her million, which she documented, and then within 30 days later, she was a multimillionaire. And then she said it was after she became a millionaire, that year after was one of the toughest years of her life, where she fought depression, and she was just going through a lot of ridicule, and just the social media space and the internet was getting to her. And she said, she said, when you're able to master your mind and walk in purpose, that's when things start to change. So if you're not aware of it, one of B. Simone, I believe it was last summer of 2020, if I'm not mistaken, she said something to the effect of, I don't want a 9-to-5 dude, right? She doesn't want a man who works a 9-to-5. She wants somebody who's a hustler, who's a grinder. And she got dragged on the internet. What's wrong with 9-to-5s? How dare you? But, and she got killed for it, right? One of the many things that she ended up getting killed for online, right? And she said it bothered her. And now she's she's touring with Martin Lawrence in arenas, as one of the opening acts touring. And she said she asked the question, how many people hear this? How many people here work a 9-to-5, right? Everyone, a lot of people clapped. Yeah, I work a 9-to-5. She said, how many people plan on being at their 9-to-5 for the next 50 years? And she said she was in an arena. She said 80% of the arena was silent. 80% of the arena was silent. And what she said was, you see, if you're a part of the 20%, I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking for the ones who go to work, who are sick and tired, who are just doing it, who it causes stress and anxiety, who, they're truthfully, they want to open up their own beauty salon, or they want to be this mechanic, or they want to have their own doctor, they want to have a practice because they're a doctor, whatever it looks like. She said, I'm looking for someone who's dreaming big, who wants to walk in their purpose. Right. So, and she said, when she started pointing out the different things as far as, beauty salon, or who wants to own their own bike shop, she said she pointed to someone and mentioned beauty salon. She said after the show, the person came up to her in tears and was like, yo, it's so funny. I've been trying to open up a beauty salon for 2 years now. And when you pointed to me, it really hit home. And she said, it's funny how God uses some controversy for you to create impact down the line. Like, he used her getting dragged in the mud for her to bring it up, for her to point out to random people in the crowd. And one thing she said, it hit directly home to the person it was supposed to meet. It was supposed to hit. It hit that person directly in the face. So she said, you know what? As you start to walk in purpose, as you start to walk in truth, things start to come. You start to see the bigger picture, right? So she was like, it was okay. It was comfortable. Yes, I got dragged. I dealt with some stuff, but it took all of that of what I was going through, right? Of what I went through, so I can make that impact on this one particular person, right? Speaking to thousands of people, going on tour with Martin Lawrence, being one of the opening acts. And now it's because of what happened to her sharing her truth, that it creates impact, right? I always said, you can't walk in purpose and not live in truth. And if you're not living in truth, you will never find your purpose. You cannot walk in purpose and live in truth. You can't walk in purpose and live and not, you can't walk in purpose and not live in truth. If you're walking in purpose, you must live in truth. But if you're not living in truth, you will never find your purpose. Right? We're so glamored by the end result, again, we hear this all the time, and I hate to be cliche when I say certain things, because I'm the intention isn't to sound like anybody else. The real intention is for you to capture something that's powerful, right? And you capturing that thing that's powerful is ultimately what will take you to the next level, right? Because it is it's your purpose that will determine your steps, right? It's the truth that will guide you in your purpose to find what it is that you're trying to do and who it is that you want to impact, right? I spoke about this on one of my morning motivations. I believe it was Jim Rohn who said, Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar, he said, and this is verbatim, but he said something to the effect of, anyone can be great because anyone can serve. Hear that out. Anyone can be great because anyone can serve. You can only serve from a true humble state if you're doing it in truth. If you're not doing it in truth, it won't matter. Right? That's why I like to place everything on the table with what's happening, with what's real. I'm not sugarcoating it. I don't blow anything out of proportion. I'm not taking pictures in front of Benzes and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with manifesting what you want. I have no problem with that. However, in that state of manifestation, in that honest state and the state of figuring out like what the next moves are, right? I'm going to go through the ups and downs of life and walk in truth. Like, yo, people aren't listening to the podcast how I want them to. Why is that, right? I start to find, and B. Simone spoke about this, which is why I love her mind, and I'm very inspired by who she is, because her mental was way further. Like, it was just, she's a brilliant mind. But unless you find the root of the problem, and B. Simone speaks about this as well, you'll never be able to also live in truth. The actual root of your issue is where you'll find truth, is where you'll start to look in the mirror and start to see the truth. And it starts to slap you in the face, right? And I'm saying all of this, and I'm mentioning all of this because once you do find your purpose, once you do walk in truth, once it starts to get real for you, then things will change. 100%. Then things will change. It has no choice, right? Because when you're going through purpose and you're finding purpose, not only are you doing that, but all the trials and tribulations that you go through, you feel like your steps that you're walking are almost ordained, because that is what you want. There was a question, another question that I was asked, and this podcast is fresh on my mind, and whenever I learn something, I always want to share it. Somebody asks, when do you know to walk in purpose versus when to pivot? When do you know to walk in purpose versus when to pivot? One of my mentors used to tell me this all the time. He said, what do the people want? What are they responding to? Right? Because sometimes you can have multiple things that you're good at. You feel that you want to impact people. B. Simone originally wanted to be an entertainer. She wanted to be an artist, a singer, or a rapper. I believe it's a singer. I'm not sure, right? She had an album out, and then she started to be herself, and she started to get real. She started to do, just talk about her day. And she noticed people were feeling her in a more comedic sense than they were feeling her music. So she realized that although I have my purpose, right, of what I want to do, her true purpose was to impact people. And the people told her, let's step away from music and let's get into comedy. Right? The people gave her what that looked like. But it was also built in consistency. Right? You can't say, yo, I want this. You talk about it once, you do something for a little bit, it doesn't work out, and it's like, I don't know if the people want it. If you're consistent and you're disciplined, right? Because truth will reveal a lot of things to you, right? As you start to live in truth, you can start to see, like, man, am I lazy? Am I actually disciplined? Do I have a self-worth issue? right? And are there problems? One of the things she said, she was in a relationship, and she said, she was speaking about her non-negotiables, and she said one of her non-negotiables is when someone cheats, right? And she said, because that makes me know that you don't trust you, right? You have a self-worth issue. I have no problem with people who are have like polygamous relationships, more than one, but they're honest with who they are up front. The moment that you agree to be in a monogamous relationship, to be with one person and you cheat, that's a self-worth issue. It's a self-worth issue because now you are going against what you said you wanted, for whatever insecurities that you have, or inadequacies that make you feel whatever. You need someone to boost your ego. You don't have self-control, whatever that looks like. Those are things that are very valid in that space, and starts to reveal who you are as a human being. It's revealing, right? It's not bad or good. It's an awareness piece. It's allows you to start to see who you are. And when you can see that and you can address it, then you can be in a space to live in truth, right? And to be honest with yourself with what that looks like. It's when we're in denial to what is, when we're in denial to what is, to save face, to save feelings, that's when things get uncomfortable, right? We'd rather be miserable and comfortable than live free and uncomfortable. It's the craziest concept as human beings, but we prioritize safety over happiness most of the time, right? How many people that are in relationships still that are not happy? It's like, oh, I need to leave, but I need to leave this relationship. I need to leave this job, whatever it is. It's because you're prioritizing comfort over happiness. You're prioritizing things that shouldn't matter to you because you don't want to be a little bit uncomfortable, right? Because you don't want to go through the grits or the feeling, because you're scared. But if you trust, right, whether it's a higher being or you trust yourself, fear shouldn't live in the same place as trust, right? You can't say, oh, I trust this. This is how it's supposed to be. But like, oh, I'm scared to do this. You can't have both. You have to decide what is it that I want that will allow me to be in a space where I can live in truth. Something to think about, right? Something to actually to get. So with that being said, man, I want this podcast to be short and sweet, not too long. First and foremost, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't, the Morning Motivation Podcast drop every single day, Monday through Friday. Look it up. I actually may change the name of the Morning Motivation Podcast to something else. But these are my 3 to 7 minute clips of morning motivations, your daily jolts, I call it, of inspiration each and every morning, or your cup of coffee of motivation. So definitely tune into that, man. I really, really appreciate you guys chiming in, man. The truth will always hold weight 99.9% of the time, right? Remember, you can't walk in purpose and not live in truth, right? And if you're not living in truth, you'll never, ever find your purpose. I love you guys, man. Peace.